The surrounding environment is the single most important factor affecting the market value of a home. The surrounding environment. They went on to say, quote, a mountain, vista, or proximity to a park, water, or green space affects the value of a home more than the size of the house, the number of rooms, the type of appliances, or even the presence of a swimming pool. Surrounding environment. This is what realtors talk about as location, location, location. You know, let's talk about another thing. Let's talk about a community's image. Image is fundamentally important to a community's economic well-being. We were talking at lunch about the research triangle as a brand, worldwide brand. This is tourism is kind of important. It's the biggest industry in the world. Chuck says the first, second, or third biggest industry in every American state. This is the official travel guide for the state of Oregon. It says, Oregon, things look different here. Can you imagine the North Carolina travel brochure if it said, North Carolina, things look the same here? Of course not, because who would come here? What is tourism? Tourism is about visiting places that are different, unusual, and unique. The more the Research Triangle area comes to look just like every place else in America, the less reason there is to visit. The less reason there is to invest. Every single day in America, people make decisions about where to live, where to work, where to invest, where to retire, where to vacation, based on what our communities look like. If every place was just like every place else, there'd be no reason to go any place. The image of this region is fundamentally important to its economic well-being. Here's another thing. Great parks shape great cities. And great cities always have great parks. You know, Chicago, it's interesting about Chicago. They have this incredible waterfront. The entire waterfront of the city of Chicago is public land. The entire waterfront. Or how about let's go to Minneapolis. There's 19 lakes in the city of Minneapolis. They are all public parkland. They're all connected by a parkway system, and all the most valuable and beautiful neighborhoods in Minneapolis surround those lakes. I was there some years ago, visiting some of those parks, driving around town. Then I got in a plane, I flew to Columbia, South Carolina. My brother's a doctor in Irmo, South Carolina. He has a sailboat. He keeps it on Lake Murray. We were floating around in the lake, kind of drinking some wine, what have you. I said to my brother, hey, how's the fishing on the lake? He goes, yeah, pretty good. Of course, you have to have a boat to go fishing. I go, what are you talking about? He said, well, of course, all the land around the lake is privately owned. So unless you're rich enough to have a big fancy house or own an expensive boat, you can't go fishing on the biggest lake in South Carolina. Contrast that to Minnesota, where every lake is publicly accessible. And by the way, those lakes create value that go back for a long distance. If you got a fancy house on a lake in Lake Murray, the value only accrues to you, the person right on the lake. It's what we call green line development versus thin line development. Let's talk about Millennium Park for a second. It's part of their lakefront park system. This used to be a railroad yard. Here it is today. What's interesting is that people say, well, that was a very expensive park. Yes, it was. But guess what? They attract 4 million tourists a year now. They're collecting $190 million a year in new taxes. The assessed valuation of adjacent properties have gone up almost $1 billion. They've built 5,000 units of new housing facing this park. This is a great city with a great park. And great parks make great cities. And the other thing we were talking about at dinner last night was, I mentioned earlier, I said the future belongs to town centers and main streets, and the strip retail is retail for the last century. Well, one of the reasons why is this, because how many people do you know to go to strip shopping centers to, hang out? Nobody. People go to buy what they want and leave, right? But people won't go to an environment like this and hang out. People stay longer, come back more often, and spend more money in places that attract their affection. In the real estate business, what we call the place-making dividend. The place-making dividend. Parks help create that dividend. One of my favorite people is Joe Raleigh, the mayor of Charleston, South Carolina. He's been the mayor there for 36 years. He's the dean of American mayors. And they have two little rivers around around Charleston called the Ashley River and the Cooper River. And the Cooper River used to be the industrial river. They had all this industrial development, and it all left, like so much of what's happened in North Carolina, where the textile industry left and so on. So he had all this abandoned land along the river, and all his developers, all the mayor's advisors said, Mayor, we need to redevelop that land. And Mayor Riley said, you're absolutely right. And they said, okay, we need to go ahead and get development right down the river. And the mayor said, no. He said, we're going to we're going to build parks along the river. Parks. They said, parks? You can't take the most valuable land in the city and then take it off the tax rolls. And Mayor Raleigh said something very, very knowing. He said, you give the best of the city to everyone. And guess what? They did build those parks along that river. And you know where the most valuable land in all of South Carolina is today? It's the land next to those parks. But guess what? Everyone in Charleston has access to the best that city has to offer.